Mind Over Money talks that we're doing. I'm here with Tremaine, and yeah, she's a great financial advisor, and she's gonna also give us some great tips on how we can get out of debt, as we talked about last week, and restructure our things like budget, our mindset about money, looking at our current things that we're spending, and how to get more secure financially so that we can be more secure mentally about money in our minds. So, Tremaine, take it away.
Yeah, Lauren, thank you so much. That was a pretty good overview. Like, that's exactly it, right? We're going to talk through all of those things. And today you'll really walk away with like some practical, actionable things that you can do. I know for me, when I'm listening to this kind of content, like the pie in the sky kind of stuff, it motivates you, gets you excited, all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Right. So
Right.
that's what we're going to be sharing tonight is like, what do I do now to really take action on this? So for those of you who don't know me, right, because I'm new to this space, I am a financial planner and investment advisor. I lead a community called the 1 Trillion Tribe, where we're on a mission to help make a million people millionaires, right? And so this is the kind of information that we share with our community. And now we're all family, y'all. Lauren has invited me in, and I ain't going nowhere.
We are.
All right. So I want to get into some of this content. The first thing we're going to talk about is budgeting. And so let me also preface, if you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll answer them. I mean, even if you're watching this later, drop those questions in the chat, right? Because we can always come back and talk about it. But I want to dive into budgeting and give you 5 things to do so that you can budget better. All right. Now, the first thing is we got to have some financial goals, right? We have to have financial goals that are actually in alignment with what we care about, right? So, what does that mean? The internet is going to tell you all kinds of different stuff that you should be spending your money on. But the reality is, if you don't care about it, you won't stick with it. What does that mean? If the internet says, hey, you should save 20% of your money. All right, cool. But what if right now your priority is not saving? What if your priority is, hey, I care about being able to travel, right? And for some people, you might hear that and think your priorities are out of whack. This is a personal thing, right? If you are somebody who finds pleasure and joy from traveling, it is something you're going to do no matter what, then build it into your budget, right? So we have to spend less time worrying about what everybody else says we should be doing and spending more time having honest conversations with ourselves like, what do I actually care about? And we build our financial goals like that, right? So that's the first thing. Now that I have my goals, two is I got to actually put them in the budget, right? So if I know travel is something I care about, if I know, having experiences, maybe it's like trying out the new cultural things in your community. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and we were talking about going to different museums and things like that, right? Build it into your budget. So that way you've set aside money to be able to do that stuff. Then the third key is we got to actually stick to the budget, right? So if I say, all right, I'm only going to spend $150 a week on entertainment, then when I get to $149, I got to look at myself and be like, all right, I need to find some free stuff to do this week because I have maxed out. I have maxed out my budget for this week, right? The next key is find some accountability. All right. So, what that could mean is maybe I have some friends that I feel confident about sharing what my goals are. And I actually decide to tell them, like, hey, one of the things I'm working on is making sure that I manage my money better. And you don't have to give all the details of your finances, but just letting somebody know that, hey, this is something I'm focused on could make a big difference. It's kind of like having a gym partner, right? Where if you want to make sure that you are going to the gym and you know somebody's going to be there waiting for you, you are more likely to go because you don't want to let that person down. So this is the same thing with your money. It's like, hey, I told this friend I was going to do this thing. And if they care about you, they're going to be like, hey, friend, you said, you said out your mouth
Yep.
that you were going to do a better job with your money. I'm reminding you what you said, right? And it's not that, this person wants to make you feel bad about it. It's just that they're reminding you of who you said you wanted to be. And that's good to have that kind of accountability, right? And then the fifth thing is we got to celebrate our milestones, right? Especially for those of us that have large goals we want to reach, right? So maybe you are saving for a down payment on a house, or maybe you are um trying to pay for a really expensive trip, right? There are milestones along the way that when you hit them, you can give yourself a small reward for sticking with it. Because sometimes if we have big goals and it's going to take us many months or many years to reach it, it might feel like, oh my gosh, that's so far away. And we lose the motivation and it's just not a fun process anymore. But if we give ourselves small rewards along the way and have that positive reinforcement, then it's like, oh, I got this little boost of energy to keep going. Right. So those are the 5 things. And Lauren did a great job putting them in the chat, right?
Yep.
Um,
Checked it
making
all
sure
out.
you have making sure you have those financial goals, build them into your budget, stick with the budget, get some accountability, and then reward yourself along the way. All right. So that is our budget section. You got any questions? Any feedback? Anything you want to share so far about budgeting? Um, Especially as it comes to, where we are on this journey right now.
Yes, and good evening, everyone. Whatever questions, comments that you have, put them in the chat. If you can relate to having just any difficulty budgeting or looking at your finances or being nervous about your finances, put a one in the chat because actually I'll put a one in the chat because that's something I struggle with myself. So I know we can all benefit from something like this. No Muhammad said, thanks for sharing the site so far skimming the page, I can see that the page is resourceful. Yeah, so what Tremaine has um, provided for us is like kind of like a breakthrough success kit of how to gain those skills of budgeting, financing, gaining that accountability, all the things that I just put in the chat about step 1 through 5 of, building out your financial plan. So that's helpful. Definitely go back to that link that I pinned in the comment and look at that package if you need any assistance there. Continue putting your questions in the chat too as we go throughout the live.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we talk about like facing challenges with budgeting. When I was first starting this journey, it was so hard to budget.
Mm,
It was so hard. And it was for a couple of reasons, right? The first one was like I was not paying attention to how much I was spending. And I was thinking like, okay, there's money in the account. That means I can spend it.
wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And we have to be careful that we're not just only paying attention to like, oh, there's money there, but realizing like, oh, maybe I shouldn't spend all of this money because I might actually need it for a bill that's due later in the month, right? Or to just get in the habit of letting money sit in our account and not having this burning desire to spend because we have it. So that was like the first piece of some of the struggles I had with budgeting. But the other part was I used to be a teacher in Rocky Mount, North Carolina.
Mhm.
Okay. So if y'all know anything about North Carolina, it is the second to worst paying state for teachers.
Oh wow.
Okay. So I was making less than $35,000 a year.
Mm.
And when you think about like budgeting and you feel like you don't have that much money anyway, sometimes it's hard to even just wrap your mind around, oh, I should be putting money in this different categories, isn't even worth it to try.
Mm,
Right. And so that was one of the mindset shifts I had to come over was it is worth it to try. And if I feel like I'm not making enough money, what steps can I take to change that?
yeah.
Right. And so what I did was I moved 2.5 hours north back to Virginia, and that came with a $15,000 salary increase. Right? And so I was still in the same profession, still teaching the same concepts, right? I went from teaching high school math in North Carolina to high school math in Virginia. And all I did was move to a state that paid better, right? So sometimes we have to figure out like, if my problem is I don't make enough money, what can I do to address the problem?
Mm,
Right? Because sometimes that really is the setback. It's like there's no level of creative budgeting that you can do. And if you become aware that that's what your problem is, okay, now what, how do I fix it? Right? Because I know for many of us, we're doing all the things, right? We've cut out the DoorDash and we've cut out all the extra subscriptions. And it's almost like, man, what else can I give up? And
yeah.
when there's nothing else to give up, the answer is I gotta make more money.
Yeah.
Right? So can anybody relate to that? Where it's like, people are judging me saying I'm spending my money wrong and I'm not being a good steward and all these things, but I really am trying. But it's just that I really just don't make enough money. Excuse me.
Yeah, I can directly relate to that. Like in the past, there have been times when I look at my account and look at what I'm spending money on, and it's not like I'm spending money on a whole bunch of things. Like I just got my nails done recently, but like other than that, maybe I was spending money on your typical car insurance, phone bill, your groceries, and trying to limit as much as you can, especially when you're young. Eating out, that's probably the most most common thing you spend money on because they're like little purchases here and there, right?
Yeah.
Now, out can really take a toll on your bank account over time. And what you said about realizing when you have money in your account, that doesn't really mean that you have that money to spend. It's just sitting there waiting for the next bill to come because your bill is on auto pay and it's going to come out of your account anyways. So you're gonna be looking like, oh, where did this money come from? I mean, where did this money go? Because you thought you had it in your account or you thought you had extra money, but that's really just money sitting in your account waiting for that bill collector to come. So that really like perked my ears up because how can we really prevent that? Or, should we set aside that money to beforehand? And then Cyber Love says literally me. Oh my goodness. Tria says I'm eating out too much. Look, eating out will literally kill your bank account. I know from hands on. That's why I started meal prepping. But anyways.
Yeah, yeah. That's so good, right? So one of the things I started doing is I use my Cash App card for like my extra spending. So anytime I am eating out or doing extracurricular activity, well, extracurricular, that sounds so much like after school stuff, right? But like extra fun stuff, that money comes off my Cash App card, right? Because I've set it aside to spend to do whatever I want to do. And so when it's gone, right? So like I choose to separate it so that way the rest of the things that are on automation is not being interrupted,
Mm,
right? So that's one of the strategies I use to make sure that I don't mess up the flow, right? So that might be something that you can try to do to get a system in place so that it makes it easier for you to track what you're spending, and then two, to make sure that you don't go over budget. So that's
mm.
what I like to do.
Mm. Oh yeah, and I saw Muhammad's comment or question from last week, and we did have some questions for last week that I was going to bring up too, as we get towards the end. But Tremaine, I don't know if you want to answer it now
Yeah,
or
we can do it now.
um. He said, "Is a repossessed car a financial matter to fix or just a credit matter to fix?" That's actually a really good, great question.
So we can't have credit matters without it being financial, right? Because credit impacts our finances and our ability to get access to capital. So A repossession is something that's on your credit report when you don't make the payments for a vehicle loan you might have, right? The very best thing to do is to communicate with the lender, right? Sometimes we don't want to have the conversations because we know they're trying to get the money and we just don't got it, right? And it's nothing to be ashamed about. We have to go into solution mode, right? How can I fix this? How can I work this thing out? So if you find yourself in a predicament, and this is not just with repossessions, right? It's anytime you owe a creditor and you're not able to pay on time, contact them. Okay. Contact them and just have the conversation. What creditors want to know is that you are not trying to avoid them, right? When you have the conversation, that lets them know that you know you're in a predicament, you intend to pay this money back and you're not trying to avoid and get out of it, and they're willing to work with you because there's so many people that are unresponsive,
Yeah.
and a lack of response is an indicator that, like, hey, I don't want to talk to you, like I'm not trying to work out anything and I may not pay you back. But having the conversation at least lets them know, like, yes, I know something's going on, but it is my intention to get you this money. Is there anything we can do to put in, like, a contingency plan, anything, right? And oftentimes that's all it takes is
Mhm.
like, hey, I would like to figure out a strategy to make this work. Right? Now, if you get too far behind and we're at a place where, like, they got to come collect the asset, then that is what it is. You just have to decide, how am I going to do better moving forward? But you're not the first person to have a car repossessed. You won't be the last. So it's not something to, like, hang your head down about or anything. It's like, okay, this is what it is. How do I fix it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, in that because I've been in credit debt before too, and it's a lot of this, financial, like getting yourself out of financial entanglements, I'll say, is honestly the communications that you have. Like, for example, if you've been at a bank for, let's say, less than 5 years, versus if you've been with that bank for maybe 10 years, they would be more likely to, because you had, like, a longer history of being with them and having a relationship and communication with them for that 10-year span, they would be a lot more likely to give you some leeway, I would think. Um, and or not leeway, but just because you've been in communication, the communication in the relationship is more important than the actual situation, which makes so much sense as to why we need to be in not in really like reaction mode when stuff like that happens, but really just be in a mode of like, okay, solution, once you get past the initial reaction of what's happening, realize that there's a solution and we can go either route to where you go towards the communication and don't leave, don't intend to leave anybody hanging, but then also realize that um like Tremaine says, there's other factors that come into play that we can manipulate, sort of like how much income we're making. If we just know that we haven't been able to keep up with the car payments or the phone bill payments or the Netflix payments or whatever payment it is for months, and you've cut out everything else, then maybe it's like, oh, I just need to make more money. Simply
Yeah.
put.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I want to remind folks that are just getting in, if you need a budget or a debt payoff plan or a one-page financial plan, Lauren has linked a free breakthrough success kit that has all of those templates inside of it, right? So you can grab it, use it. Hopefully it helps you out. But this is what I've used for so many clients to help them organize their finances, right? It doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it seem. We just have to sit down and lay out everything to make a clear roadmap, right? And so that's what the budget, the debt payoff plan, the one page financial plan, that's what that stuff is going to help you do so that you can get clear about, okay, I see all of these things before me. What's the very next thing I need to do? Okay, so grab that so that you can use it. And so yeah, this was good. The budget piece was good. All right.
Yeah.
And you guys are making great comments. tuning in. Thanks for engaging with us. I want to move to saving, right? What are some things that we can do to make sure that we are becoming savers and we're not just spending everything we got, right? So I got four things. The first thing for saving is when you're thinking about setting money to the side, if you can take a moment to stop thinking about, okay, I got to put $10,000 in my savings account and think more like, how much should I save so that I can feel improvement in my quality of life? Okay. And so let me break down what that difference is, right? So many people will tell you you should have 3 to 6 months of emergency savings. And what does that even mean? Right? Like, what does that even mean? If you think about how much money do I need to have set aside so that I don't feel anxious? How much money do I need to have set aside so that I can make better decisions about what I say yes and no to? How much money do I need to have set aside so that if this job is causing me stress and I'm ready to go, I can just say, bye, I don't work here no more, right? That's the kind of motivation we can use to increase our savings, because now it's not so much connected to, oh, I should have $12,000 in my savings account. It's more about how much money I got to have so I can tell these people I don't work here no more. I don't need this job, right? That gives you a different level of confidence, energy. Like when you don't have to work somewhere because you have financial security, that's a different conversation, right? Your energy is different. So if you can start to shift how you think about saving from, oh, I got to have X amount of dollars in my account to, oh, how much I need to have so like I can walk out with my chest out a little bit, right? To like that kind of vibe. Now it turns into, how do I level up and become the next best version of myself because I feel more confident. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. Let me know, Lauren, did that make sense?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so that's number one, right? What does saving look like to improve my quality of life? Number two is, this is what we're gonna do a little bit of math. What is your savings rate? All right.
Mhm.
So your savings rate is the percentage of money that you are saving in relation to how much you make. All right. So I used to teach math, y'all, and I'm sorry if you're not a math person, but you're going to be a math person today. So what we do is you think about your how much money you're putting into your savings account throughout the year. So let's say you put $2,000 into your savings account or your retirement accounts, investments, anything like that. Maybe it's $2,000 for the year. If you make $100,000, that's 2 divided by 100. Your savings rate is 2%. Now, is that good? No, right? We want our savings rate to be at least 10%, ideally 20%, and like the best is 30%. So think about your savings patterns right now. And honestly, think about it in relation to your budget. If we want to be at saving 20%, right? Um, think about, can you even afford to do that right now with how you're spending? If you're bringing home $5,000 a month, will your bills allow you to save 1,000 of that? And if
Mhm.
not, why not? Right? Because we might have some really compelling reasons. It could be, we're the sole income earner, and maybe we have partner dependents, right? And it's just like it's stretched, right? Um, but if not, and it's just you, like it's just me, right? We probably should be able to save a little bit more. So think about your savings rate. Look at it in relation to your budget. What can you do to increase that savings rate? And for some of us, it's a matter of let's DoorDash. It's a matter of making sure we're not eating out every day, right?
Oh,
It's a matter of um, just being conscious of what we swipe our cards for and being intentional with setting that money to the side when we have it. Okay, so that was two. That was the savings rate. The third thing is taking the time to redefine what wealth and abundance means for you. Okay, um, because it can be challenging when we see all of this different stuff on social media. And if you're not careful, you can start to think you want stuff that's expensive just because other people have it. And if that's not your definition of wealth and abundance, why would we spend our money on it? Right? So becoming a saver can look like, okay, I actually don't care about half of this stuff I thought I cared about. I care about making sure that I can tell these people I don't want to work for them no more. Can y'all hear? Can y'all hear? Like, I'm trying to retire tomorrow. That's what wealth and abundance looks like for me. It's the freedom and the flexibility to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. So having that money set aside as a cushion, that's important to me, right? That's what wealth and abundance looks like for me. And so for you, creating a definition for yourself will help you set your savings goals around reaching that definition. So, Lauren, you want to speak to this? Like, how does knowing what you care about as far as wealth and abundance factor into like your mindset and like just this wellness piece of creating holistic goals?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about it, but I think in general, just in general, we have FOMO created
Mm,
by so many things. I mean, if you think about it, right? We literally have in every social media app, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube, the content platform has become a shopping mall.
yeah,
Facebook Marketplace, Instagram store, like the shopping stores, right? So just the way that things are heavily monetized today
yeah.
creates an opportunity for you to be sold anything, anywhere, at any time.
Hmm.
So I think being more aware of how saturated our media platforms are of distractions and how they create FOMO, honestly, the fear of missing out and the fear of getting left behind if you don't have those things that you see other people having can be a huge step. That awareness can be a huge step into knowing what abundance means for you. And the
Mm,
fact you mentioned, knowing what an abundant life looks like for you or knowing what wealth looks like for you was personally a huge thing for me because when I first started to get on social media, honestly, and build this platform, there is like so much content around creating your or redesigning your life or, manifesting or an abundance. And I'm sure a lot of you all on the holistic flow community can relate to seeing those type of videos or those type of content and thinking, oh, I need to redefine like what a passionate, like abundant life looks like for me and wealth looks like for me because I started to realize for myself that minimalism in what I wear is actually more abundant than having so many clothes. And having so many clothes and going shopping all the time really creates so much what's it called? Decision fatigue about what I should
yeah.
and that okay, I took that concept of decision fatigue and told myself that actually having less is more for me just because of that. So sometimes less physical things that you have create more space for just happiness because you don't have physical things to fill up that space. So I think when we apply that to buying everything that you see, you can definitely learn how to retract the amount that you purchase, be more mindful about the culture of consumerism, and also just be mindful that your spending habits, if you do have a spouse, if you do have children, right? They could trickle down into your home life too, and those habits you're creating a standard like for other people around you as well. So yeah.
That was so good.
Thank
That
you.
was so good. That was so good. And you leaned like right into the fourth point. And I see the comments, guys. We're gonna answer in a second. I want to get this last point out before I forget. But the last point is like having this clear definition of what does it mean to be financially secure for you, right? What does that look like? Because sometimes we adopt definitions from other people that may be above or below what financial security looks like for us, right? And so for my company, we're on a mission to help people become millionaires, but that's only if you want to be one, right? Not everybody needs $1 million to be secure, right? Because if you live a minimal lifestyle and you don't have a lot of expenses, your financial security may be a lower threshold, right? And that's okay, right? It's whatever is for you, right? So it's really important to know what that is, so that way when you're creating your strategy, it's coming from a place of this is what it means for me, not compared to what goals everybody else are chasing, because that can skew your perception. It can make you run and chase things harder with more effort and energy than you actually care to exert. So it's critical, right, to like stand firm and be confident, like, okay, these are the things I care about. And then that way, when you see the shopping mall of things to buy on every single platform, it's like it tempts you less because that ain't even in alignment with what you want, right? And that's one of the ways I'm able to ignore a lot of this stuff because I'm like, this, I don't even care about that anymore, right? Now, there was a point in time where retail therapy was my thing, okay? I was buying all the things. But I'm like you, Lauren, where I have shifted to a place of minimalism. I even thought about adopting a uniform like Steve Jobs,
Yeah,
right? Where it's like
yeah,
I was gonna be black turtleneck shorty with the
yeah,
jeans, okay?
right,
No decisions. But then I was like, I'm a little bit more creative than that. So I need a few things. But that's such a good point where acquiring and hoarding and just having stuff to have it, one, it costs more to house all of the stuff, right? And then two, you create like it's all this clutter,
yeah,
not only physical clutter but also like mental clutter of like where does this stuff go,
right, yeah,
right? So that's good. All right, can we get to them comments?
yes,
What was y'all saying, y'all? I saw some good stuff in there.
yeah. Lovely says, "Salute to you guys. Salute to you." I'm currently 2 years young. I've had I have a 1-year-old and I live with my spouse. I am out of work and unfortunately a high school dropout and no car. Temporarily, right? Exactly. We're gonna claim it temporarily, right? It's all temporary. She says, "Any advice?"
Have you set any goals? Right, my first thing would be like a year from today, what would you like to see different?
Mm,
Right? Is it that you want to have a car? Is it that you want to be employed? Is it you want to have what? Right? The advice is we have to identify where we want to go so that we can create the pathway to get there. Right? Because I can give you all kinds of things to do, right? But if none of that is in alignment with what you want, it doesn't matter.
mm,
So my advice would be you have to identify what you want so that way your brain can start to create the pathways to figure out how you're going to get there. Okay? So I hope that made sense. But that's it, right? That's the first thing.
yeah, that's really good. And to that, I will say you want to be as specific as possible. And some people have a fear of being too specific because they think that it may not be in alignment or you may not get it if you say, I want to have this and that car or but I'm a firm believer in the more specific that you get, the more that you can see it because your thoughts and your imagination is more powerful than we realize that
Yes.
our thoughts are and our ability to envision what we want, we eventually gravitate towards that thing because our thought becomes like a magnet for attracting the physical thing. So much so that even if we have a lot of negative thoughts in our mind, even though we don't want that negative thing to happen, it eventually starts to happen because your mind doesn't know the difference between what you say that you want and what you don't want, but you still think of.
Mm,
So a lot of the times, the reason why our past like keeps coming up to us is because we are thinking a lot and we're imagining a lot, but we're imagining the worst case scenario that could happen, or we're imagining our fears. And the problem is that we sometimes envision our fears more than we envision what we want, so that the fear ends up happening more than what we want. So like Tremaine said, setting that goal and then working towards that is the way to go. And because sometimes our fears can be so strong, that's all the reason more you need to have a more clear goal so that that becomes the arrow that you shoot at, or the target that you shoot the arrow at. And the closer that you aim to the target, the closer you are to hitting it.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Look, and if you need a roadmap, there's a link for you to click that
Yeah.
has a budget template, that has a debt payoff strategy. You can write down those goals so you can figure out like how am I going to get here. All right, so be sure to click that. All right, guys, this has been amazing. Thank you for so much for engaging, having conversation with us. So me and Lauren ain't got to talk to ourselves, right? It's good to be able to get that feedback, so that we can have this conversation together. I want to move on to debt, right? So this is kind of where we started last week, where we were thinking about, some of us have so much student loan debt and we're not even happy with the job we picked, right? I got this degree. I'm like, I don't do anything with this degree. Take the degree back and take the loans back too. Okay. Right. So, what are some things that we can do to get out of debt, and then to just improve our credit scores, right? So, we talked a little bit about having the conversation with creditors, but I want to dive a little bit deeper. So, the I got 5 things, right? So you know how many's come. I got 5 things about debt. The first thing is you got to pay off all of your high interest debt. Okay. So when I am talking about high interest, I am talking about every debt you have that is 9% or higher. Okay. So this is probably going to be credit cards. It's probably going to be personal loans. Depending on how good or bad your credit is, it could even be car notes, right? I had a client I was working with, she was paying 16% interest on a car note, right?
Ooh.
And that's not uncommon if your credit isn't that great. So, priority when we're getting our finances in order, right? A lot of us want to invest, and I want that for you, but it does not help to invest when we are paying such high interest on our debt. Okay. So we got to be aggressive with paying off the debts that are high interest. All right. Put them in order, right? Smallest balance to largest balance, and then just attack one at a time. Pay the minimums on everything, but find that smallest debt, and like every extra dollar you can throw at it without messing up your budget, every extra dollar you can throw at it, pay that thing off. All right. So that's the first thing. Number 2 is maintain a healthy credit score. So I saw a comment just pop up that was asking about how to build credit if you're starting at zero, right? You need to get some sort of secured credit card. So wherever you bank, they probably have a program where you can have a secured credit card. So what does that mean? That means you apply for this secured credit card. They'll tell you, hey, you give us $300. They'll put the $300 in an account, and then you can borrow up to $300 paid off, right? Every single month. Now, you probably only want to put like gas or something, a small subscription on it, so that it keeps a small percentage of your available credit, right? So that you show you're using it, but you're not maxing it out. Because what I don't want to do is have a $300 limit and then spend $297, right, every month, and then pay it down, because that doesn't look good.
Mhm.
But if I have a $300 limit and I only spend $30 and I pay it off, right, every single month, that looks great. So that's one of the first things you can do to start to build credit. Get a secured credit card. Another thing that you can do is you can get department store cards. I would only recommend one, right? And don't make it at your favorite place. Pick it somewhere you might go to like get holiday gifts or birthday gifts or something like that. But if you love candles, do not get a department store card to Bath and Body Works. Okay, that's a setup. um, but department store cards are typically easier to get than a credit card from like a bank, right? And so this will be another um line that'll show up on your credit report. All right. Now, for those of us who already have credit, right? If you already got credit cards, you got student loans, maybe you have a car note, we need to focus on decreasing the balances on our debt. We want to get it down below 30% across the board. All right. Now, if I can pay it off every month, excellent. That's good. But many of us are not there, right? Bring those balances down as low as possible so we can get below that 30%. I want to be careful not to apply for lots of loans, lots of credit cards. Inquiries is what I get when I apply for credit. If I do that a bunch of times, what I'm doing is I'm telling the lenders, I'm telling the bank that, oh, snap, I need money, right? When you show the bank that you need money, guess what? They don't want to give it to you. Okay. So it's important that you really only apply for credit when you absolutely want to use it. Okay. Don't just be out here getting credit cards because you can, because that is a negative ding and it keeps hitting, impacting your score, right? Every time you get an inquiry, it can drop your score 3 to 7 points. And so if you imagine you do 5 of them, your score might go down 35 points. Okay. So be careful not to apply for a bunch of credit just for the sake of applying for it. Um, and then the most important piece that impacts your credit is on time payments. So, where possible, pay what you owe on time. And if it can't be 100% on time, make sure it's not more than 30 days late. When it becomes 30 days late, that's when it gets reported to the bureau. Okay, so that's why we talk about having conversations with the creditors, with the lenders, because you can probably work out some deal, some strategy, some something, right? To let them know, hey, can I make this partial payment? Like, what we got to do, right? To not have that negative report go against you. Okay, because stuff happens all the time, y'all. Like, money be weird sometimes, but communication and conversation can help curb the negative impact that happens. Okay, so have those conversations. Number 3, develop a relationship with your bankers. So if you have a credit union account or even like a regional bank, like a Bank of America, Truist, all the folks, get to know the folks there, right? Because then you can ask them questions about, what are the minimum requirements to get a credit card? What kind of loans do you offer, right? Because if I'm looking to purchase a vehicle and they have auto loans, you can identify like, oh, well, what's the process to get an auto loan, right? What's the process to um know how much I'm approved for in advance, right? Because what you can do sometimes is you can go to your lender and say, hey, I want to get a $45,000 car, right? And they'll be like, okay, you are pre-approved for this amount. And then you take that information to the dealership, and now you have better options because you have financing from the bank and you don't have to worry about the financing at the dealership because it's always more expensive. Okay. Always. But like that kind of stuff helps out in the long run. Number 4, know your debt to income ratio. So, what this is a measurement of how much you're spending on debt payments in relation to how much money you're bringing in every month. So, similar to your savings rate, your debt to income ratio tells you how much of my money am I spending paying off debt every month. We want this number to be little, as low as possible. And so, for those of us who are not homeowners yet, this number is critical because if your debt to income ratio is too high, even if you have a high salary, many lenders are not going to give you a mortgage because you might not be able to take on that mortgage payment within their guidelines. So to find your debt to income ratio, ideally you want to be below 35%, right? If you're looking to get access to more capital, you're going to divide how much am I spending monthly in debt payments divided by how much am I bringing home every month, right? So if I have $1,000 that I'm making in car note, student loan payment, maybe I got one credit card with a balance on it and the minimum payment on that, if all those added together are $1,000, but I bring home 5 grand, that's a 20% debt to income ratio. That's pretty good, right? I can get a loan. But if I am making $2,000 in debt payments, right, and I only bring home $4,000, that's a 50% debt to income ratio. Nobody's gonna give me any money,
Mm.
right? Because that tells them you don't have money left over. You making 50% of your money's going to paying off debt. You still got to eat, pay utilities, right? Put gas in your car, right? So that tells them you don't have any money left over. You can't afford this. So know what that number is. And then number 5, right? Use credit to grow your cash flowing assets, right? So we talk a lot about being debt free and paying off debt and like all that stuff, right? That is, if you're in the beginning of this journey and you have debt and you're not sure how to manage it well, close your ears real quick, right? Number 5 is for the folks who are like, all right, I have a great credit score. I don't keep balances on my credit cards. How can I use this to make some more money? You, my friend, can go buy some assets, right? You can go purchase another rental property. You can go buy a car and put it on Turo. You can purchase a yacht and rent it out for people that are going on, week-long trips and want to host a day at sea with their friends, right? You can go buy some assets and put those assets to use to make you some more money. That is one of the best things you can do with your credit because you can turn this debt into an asset that's making you money. Okay, so that's number 5. That's a little bit more advanced strategy, and y'all, you can come back work with me one-on-one if you want some deeper details about that. But debt doesn't have to be a bad thing if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
I talked a whole bunch. Do we got any questions? What you got, What you got for me, Lauren?
Man, those right there, that 1 through 5, man, oh man. I was like, I was just like, hmm. Wow, like there's so many things that you like going into incurring credit, you might not know because you just, you don't know what you don't know oftentimes.
Yeah.
And then you find out you're like, oh, I didn't know that. If I didn't known that one thing, it would have made things so much easier to get stuck in a rut. And then also, you'll everybody's at different levels.
Yeah.
And the things that we do go through, they're teaching us how to manage money, how to manage our finances, and you can learn from another person who's a little bit more advanced, or you can learn from the mistakes that you've made. But the thing is to learn from both and not really compare and contrast,
Mm.
stages of where somebody else might be, but look at where you are and say, like, how can I, get to that solution? So that was amazing. I did want to go back to just one comment earlier. Muhammad Abdul Karim says it's a oh, so there's a thing I receive $1,000 a month and my rent is 5. I save about half of my capital a month. I am investment illiterate. Well, you gonna become literate today, Muhammad. So he said, is there any way to point me towards investing that 5 in the bank, investing that 5 that I bank? Oh, okay. So I think you touched on that. I think you touched on that just a little bit, in the what was it, number 4? Knowing your debt to income ratio, is that correct?
Is it Muhammad, can you help us out? Give us a little bit of clarity, like what you're asking about. Are you asking about investing, like how you should invest that 500? Let us know in the comments because I want to make sure I answer correctly. But I am about to go into investing, y'all. So hopefully, maybe I might answer it, right? That's what this last part is. We're gonna talk about what investing looks like and how to be confident. Um, so when we're talking about investing, all right, y'all, I got 5 this time. I got five. These are my last five. All right. Okay. Thanks, Muhammad. So I'm gonna cover that in this section. All right. The first thing you can do to invest is you got to outpace inflation with your savings and investments. Okay? So let me give you some definitions. Inflation is what happens when the cost of living increases, right? So everything costs more money. So if you read the news and you hear stuff like, "Oh, eggs are $500 now," right? They used to be 189, right? That's inflation. And so the average inflation right now, and this video is in late February of 2024, is 3.7%. So what that means is life is costing 3.7% more than it did last year.
Mhm.
So I need to make sure that in my savings account, I'm at least earning 3.7% interest. Why? Because if I'm not earning at least that much interest, my money is buying less and it's worth less than it was last year. Okay. Now, where can you get 3.74% interest? High yield savings accounts, right? This could be from like Ally, ALLY.com, Barclays, BARCLAYS, right? Capital One 360, right? These are places that have high yield savings accounts that are paying better interest than like your typical Truist or Bank of America, even like many of your credit unions, all right? If you have a bank account right now and it's not paying more than 3.74% interest on your savings, I need you to go get a better one. All right. You can keep that relationship because maybe they have great customer service. I don't know. But your money is losing the ability to buy what it could buy last year. So you got to make sure that you're at least making enough interest to stay at the same pace at how much more life is costing. All right. So that's like the very fundamental thing to do. Now, from there, we got to understand the basics of investing, right? So when we talk about investing, a lot of people like to make this big over your head type thing. It doesn't have to be that complicated. All an investment is you are giving money to a company or an organization and you're expecting them to make you some more money and give it back. That's all an investment is, right? It takes on many forms. It can look like a stock, it can look like a bond, it can look like you purchasing real estate, right? There's all kind of ways to invest. But the fundamental across everything is you give money to an organization or a company and you expect that money to come back to you plus some more. All right? Those are the basics. Number three, right? You need to have a long term strategy for your goals with the appropriate accounts. All right. So, if my goal is to retire, I need to have a retirement account and invest inside the retirement account. If my goal is to save money for my kids, right? I need to invest inside accounts for the kids, right? If my goal is to have money to cover health expenses, I need to invest inside of an account for health expenses. So, the biggest piece of investing is making sure you have the right accounts, right? What you put inside of it matters less than the type of account it's in. Because for most of us, if you're young, right, millennial, Gen Z, you got a lot of time on your side. And so a good asset mix, right, a good stock mix, um, what stocks you buy, as long as you don't buy crap, right? Over the next 20, 30, 40 years, they're going to grow in value. So it's not so much, oh, like, what is Tesla doing today? Or what is Apple doing? Should I buy either or? The minutia, like those kind of details, matter less than is my Apple, Tesla, Johnson and Johnson, are they in the right account for what I need them to do? Right? Because I could have the investments, but if they're in a retirement account, but I need it to be inside of a custodial account so that my kid can go to school, I got a problem. Right? So I could have it inside of my Robinhood account, but if my Robinhood account starts to make a whole bunch of money and now I got to cash it out and pay taxes on it, I got a problem. Right? So make sure you know what your long-term goals are and you have the accounts that are best suited for those goals, and then put the investments inside. It don't got to be a super complicated strategy. For many of you, you can find a good total market index fund, right? I can't tell you what to invest in, right? I'm not supposed to give investment advice, but I can educate you. Look up a good total market index fund. Look up a good S&P 500 index fund and invest in that, right? You don't have to do the work of figuring out like which company is the very best one. Nope. Pick a fund that has a whole bunch of them, put that inside the appropriate account, and let that do the work for you. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Number 4, build your financial fort. All right, um, make sure you have your savings account. Make sure you have your retirement account. If you are young and you work for somebody and they give you a 401k, invest in your 401k. Right? If you don't have insurance, life insurance, get some life insurance. Make sure that you know what you want your money to do for you and plug in the appropriate investment accounts. All right. And then the last piece, I know I talked real fast. I'm sorry, y'all. Well, I know we're running up on time. The last piece is start to think about your 7 streams of income. Okay. And this has been a hot topic. Like, I know a lot of people are interested in this, right? 7 streams of income does not mean 7 jobs. It means turn the money that you make into other streams of income. So the first stream is earned income. That's the money that I'm bringing in from working. I can turn that into dividend income. That means I buy stocks that pay me dividends, right? I can also turn it into interest income. A lot of us are making interest income on our savings accounts, right? If I have a savings account and it's paying 4 or 5% interest and I get that money deposited, that's interest income. I just need to put more money in the account so that I get more interest, right? So that's another stream of income. Then I can also turn the money that I make into rental income. So if I buy a property and somebody lives in it and they pay me rent payments, that's interest income, right? So unfortunately, I don't have time to go into the details of all of the different strategies, but when you think about 7 streams of income, you're literally turning the money that you make into the other streams. It's not you getting 7 jobs. It's you putting those dollars to work for all these 7 streams. All right. So I hope that was good. Sorry, I feel like I rushed. We could probably do a whole nother session on just
Yeah.
7 streams of income, but let me know, Laura, how was that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I was just thinking, I'm like, man, this is so good that we could do a part 3, 4. Like we could do a whole series on this around money mindset and just it's really about changing your mindset about how you look at the numbers and then it doesn't seem so like so much.
Yeah.
When I was learning a lot about, investing and like what to invest in and all this Bitcoin and stuff like that, it just seems so overwhelming sometimes. But then once you have a solid foundation of, like you said, diversifying and honestly, just setting that goal for maybe like the 2 years or 3 years ahead. And then what are the actionable steps in between there that you need to take? But just focus on one step at a time. You know,
Yeah.
don't focus on so many things. But when you just focus on one step and then that leads you to the next step and the next one, it seems a lot more fluid and it's certainly doable. This is certainly doable and it is certainly doable to get yourself out of debt um, and to pay off your car payments, etc. I know we had a couple questions here. If you have questions, I'm going to what Tremaine, do you have to go at
Yeah, I do gotta
stop?
run.
Yes.
But listen, y'all, if you want another part, like if you want a part 3, let us know in the comments. You gotta say part 3. You gotta say part 3 in the comments and let us know. And we'll make time to come back and keep teaching. I'll go deeper into the 7 streams of income. But if you enjoyed this, there's 2 things you can do. The first thing is grab that success kit, right? It's a free template guide And one of the templates is actually planning out your 7 streams of income. Okay, like I give you the resources to do that. And the second thing is there is a free 14-day trial to come into my community where I talk about this stuff and I help you build the strategy for it, right? I used to be a teacher, so I love teaching about this stuff, but there's nothing like having the space for somebody to walk you through how to do it, right? So if you want to join that community, it's called Breakthrough Financial Coaching and Accountability. There's a free 14-day trial. Lauren's gonna drop the link where you can do that. But no matter what, we're gonna do a part 3. I see the comments, and so we'll make sure that we dive deeper so that we have a really good understanding of what this all looks like. All right, guys, I'm so sorry I gotta jump. I feel like we always have these great conversations, and then I gotta run so that I can go teach in the community.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tremaine. I noticed that was a typo that I put. So join the community here. It's supposed to say that. And yeah, Tremaine is amazing on all things like investment, financial planning, and just yeah. So go ahead and check all both of those links out. Type part 3 in the chat, and also if you're watching on replay too, make sure you take those notes so you can watch it back. And we'll definitely be back for you all to do some more collaborations and help you all too. So take what you learned and comment under this live what you learned from it and what you're going to implement in the next week in the next week from now to get yourself to the next level. Thanks so much, Tremaine, and have a great night, everybody. See y'all.